Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario, Nouri, and Kyrill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at labsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and grid fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. All right, welcome everybody to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we have Kris Simmons from Six Strong Media. Welcome, Kris.
Hey, thanks, guys.
So before we kind of just jump into it, tell us a little bit of give us a little backstory of who you are and how you started your company.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kris Simmons. I'm the founder and CEO of Six Strong Media, and I've actually had a production company this is my 25th year. And in this company, actually, I've had for 15 years. I had another company with a partner kind of pre-economic meltdown back in the 09, 2010 years. But since then, I've had this company for 15 years. But yeah, we're primarily a corporate video production agency. We have over 250 camera crews across the United States. And, we work with national clients, global clients, and we're actually headquartered in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
250 people across the states.
Yeah, I was telling Kyrill, I think it's more like 280 now, but I haven't counted, so I don't put that in the marketing.
How did you even get to that point?
Is it like people you're working with like occasionally, or like people you work with somewhat consistently?
So we work in, we like to say we've got local boots on the ground within 2 hours of any U.S. city, right? And so essentially what that does is just enables us to compete as locals, in cities across the country. So we do a lot of advertising, a lot of marketing, a lot of social media outreach type stuff. And so what I think I was talking to Dario a while back about the idea of, we're doing a lot of competing for contracts in other cities, but typically what happens is you have to go, oh gosh, well now I have to find a crew and I have to wait to get a quote from that crew. And what I was learning was that we were losing because we weren't fast enough. Like we weren't getting a quote back to the client in a timely manner because I was waiting for these guys to get off of shoots to give a quote to me and that kind of stuff. So I was like, you know what, no more. So we started reaching out ahead of time, even before we had a job, and saying, hey, this is who we are. This is the way we like to work. We have opportunities to work in your city. We'd love to partner with you to do the projects for us, to be that kind of our local folks to capture the footage, then send it back to us, to our HQ in Chattanooga, and basically pre-negotiate rates, pre-negotiate expectations. So these crews are vetted, so they're really partners for us so that we have complete confidence. If a client calls us from London, England, and they have a shoot in Chicago, Well, we already know that we've got 3 crews that we 100% trust and have fully vetted and have already negotiated rates. So I don't even have to check availability before I close that deal. I can just close the deal, right? Yeah. And then basically that gives us an advantage, because while our competitors are still trying to figure out what they're going to quote, we've already sent the quote and had the meeting, right? And so we do, and as long as we're competitive, in terms of our pricing, we get the job a lot of the time. So that's been a huge differentiator for us, is really the mindset of, yes, we're a creative business, but more so than that, we're a talent recruiting and development business, because we have to constantly be on the search for good team members to partner up with in these cities all across the United States. And we're actually starting to move a little bit into Canada, into Europe and that kind of stuff, but just taking really small baby steps in that realm.
It's hard to do. Like, we tried to do something similar for us here, like just expand our roster of freelancers. And I think I mentioned this on the last episode, but like, it's very hard to find people that fit your style and everything, because like, for example, with videographers, I did like a call twice and I got maybe like over 200 people that applied, and there was maybe like 2 people that I was interested in, because everyone else, it's like their portfolio is all like film and TV or like big time commercials, and I was like, I just need someone that knows how to do like a corporate interview and like events. And I was like, I don't see any of that in your guys' portfolio. Yeah. So it's like, cool, you can do a movie. I don't do movies. Can you do this? Yeah. And so I'm curious as to how you were able to like find like reliable people, because I was struggling in my main city, right?
So I think what you have to do is you have to set up these kind of Easter eggs in the process, right? That will show you a little by little who could be a good partner. And for instance, if you submit a post for your calling out, or you're trying to recruit some teams to help you do something, put some things in that post that clearly show you, do these people even follow instructions on day one, right? Yeah. And it's like, hey, don't contact me through this platform. Instead, send me an email to this address so that my production manager will get the information, whatever. Well, a lot of these people think that, well, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it through the platform because no one else is doing it, and that somehow is going to give them an advantage. All that tells me is you don't follow instructions. And so therefore, as a director, as a producer, you're probably, right off the bat, I'm like, you're probably not going to be a good partner for us. Nothing personal, that's just not how we are. So it's like little things like that, or it's like specifics. Hey, send me a link to your reel, send me your website, send me these specific examples. And oh, by the way, here's a few samples of what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff I need to see. And then again, if they don't follow that, you toss it, right? And again, you might get to the end and go, well, maybe I have to be a little more lenient in what I accept is okay if literally no one, met the requirement. But it's rare that you don't get anything back. But what I've learned over doing this thousands of times and trying to reach out with these crews is you just have to you have to over communicate what you need. And to the point where you feel like you're going to offend somebody because you're making it so simple. You're breaking it down so much. I know I drive our crews crazy because I'll be like, okay, just to reiterate, we're not going to cross the line with this 2-camera interview setup, right? And they're like, well, yeah, why would we do that? And I'm like, well, because you did it last time. And I'm trying to do that. So it's like you just have to get very specific. And in your case, if you can't find, or if you, let's say out of those 100 people that came back, if you're like, man, these 5 kind of followed all the instructions, they were good to communicate with, they seem hungry, they seem excited, their work is good, it's just not exactly the kind of work that we do, go back to them and say, hey, do you have anything that's more corporate, And even if they're like, no, we really don't, what you could do is you could say, okay, well, they clearly have filmmaking chops. Maybe you bring them onto your set a couple times and hire them as a shooter or whatever, where you're hands-on directing exactly what it is you're trying to get from them. And then once they learn kind of the style and what you're going for, then there's a good probability that they're going to be able to continue to do that. But all of those other tangibles and intangibles are just as important, right? In terms of how do they communicate? Are they easy to get along with? We're a very big stickler on culture. Like, is the crew creating a good environment for our client? Are they enjoying themselves? Are they, are they relaxed? Are they stressed out and just everything's a problem, because that's not a good fit for us, because we don't want our clients we want to absorb all of that stress, right? We don't want our clients to feel that, in the field. And so sometimes even just in how we communicate via email and on a Zoom call or whatever with that crew gives us a lot of that information to know ahead of time how are they going to react when everything's hitting the fan and timelines are screwed up, or it's pouring down rain and they have to refigure the whole production schedule because of the weather. How is that going to be? So, I mean, it's definitely a process and there's no silver bullet, but there are a lot of things you can do on the front end to at least get to the point and say, okay, they've got all these intangibles, they have the chops. A lot of times, same thing. I think crews are confused about what we want to see as producers and directors in their reels and in their whatever. And I tell them, hey, a reel's great, but give me the most boring interview project that you have, because that's going to show me way more about your capabilities than this cool, sexy, show reel.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I should just, I think you're right. I think I should just go through the final list that I have, because I kind of, I did go, like the post I made, I said I'm looking for cinematographers / videographers. And then the second time I did it, I was like, videographers, I'm strictly looking for corporate content. If you don't have corporate content, don't apply. But I still had the same type of people applying, right? Yeah. So I think you're right. I should just go through the ones that have like a good commercial like content, and then just kind of see if they do have corporate, and then kind of just go through that. But I was surprised. I was like, why
Dario.
don't they have a lot of? I was surprised how many applied that are in like the film and TV space. Because I'm like, is there not enough work going around that you have to apply to like postings like this? So that was a bit surprising for me. But yeah, it was interesting.
There was one kind of like that, Dario, where he had a lot of kind of like more commercial stuff, and he had like some small event stuff in his portfolio that you had to look for. But I always found whenever we ask for 2 to 3 samples of actual corporate work, that's where we start to be able to filter out a lot of the people, and it was a lot easier, because that's what
I have that in the Google form. So I have a Google form I have them submit their stuff to, and it has like everything there.
I think in the post though, you should also say it front and center, because that might also like
get people
looking.
No, I did.
Some people just post quick, but
I did. No, because it goes to the Google form we have, and then over there I have like specific things I asked for, right?
Yeah. The thing I'm curious about, Kris, though, is like with all these partners, are they mostly like independent freelancers, or are they production companies that reach out and partner with? Because that actually can make a big difference in terms of how you look for good people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I prefer to work with crews that are more kind of in the freelance mindset versus, I always think it's funny when you do a job and there's like the end client, then there's the ad agency, then there's the social agency, then there's us as the production company who hired another production company who then hired the freelancer who then hired another freelancer, right? So it's like there's 14 layers just to deliver this, which again, I don't have a problem with that, but you start to lose control, right, over kind of the whole experience and all of that. So I don't say we don't necessarily say freelancer versus production company or whatever, but some of the best relationships are with the like, I want to be able to talk to the DP, right, about what my vision is and what the client needs and that kind of stuff. I would prefer not to talk to a production company owner who's then going to have to regurgitate what I told that person to that DP, because I think there is some communication lost there. Doesn't mean, and we do have some great production company partners that do that for us, but we always require to have the conversation with the person that's actually going to be running the show at the shoot on the ground, right? Because we have to have that type of communication. Now, you're going to get better rates, obviously, if you're hiring the freelancer versus the production company. But even on that, a big part of our success has been, a long time ago, I was like, you know what, let's quit asking people what their rates are and let's just tell them what we're going to pay. And that again, you might lose the top 20% of qualified people because they don't want to work for that rate, and that's okay. I mean, no hard feelings. It either works for you or it doesn't. I don't care, I mean, I'm running a business, right? And so our rates probably are maybe not quite what you would want to make, but you didn't have to do anything to win the business. I mean, I just called you one day and you got it. And then you went and worked for the day, and then you sent me the footage and you didn't have to worry about it anymore. So I remember back when I used to freelance, yeah, I would love to get my full day rate, but if somebody was like, hey, I can offer you 25% less, but you're not going to have to do anything but just show up, and do what you do, and then at the end of it, you're done, I would be like, all day, man, I'll take that. I don't have the stress of having to follow up the client and write the contracts and chase my money down and all that and figure out how to get set up as a vendor with this big company, that delays everything by another 30 days. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take a discount for that, So yeah, I mean, that's really been a big part of what works for us. And, and occasionally we'll get, if we have a job in a city where maybe the crews that we already have, they aren't available, right? Or for any number of reasons. So we may still have to reach out and recruit another crew kind of on the fly. And sometimes you'll get some interesting emails back where they're pissed that we're not offering the rate that they want to make. And then they also want to take the time to tell us how pissed they are. And I'm like,
really?
Dude, whatever, man. Just keep rolling. Like, why are you wasting your time and mine on this? It's not going to, you think I'm going to go, oh, you know what? You're right. I'll pay you $5,000 for that day rate just because you scolded me via email. No, I mean,
what did they say? Like,
and you just got blacklisted. Like, we will never work with you ever. I don't care if you're the last guy on the planet with a camera. I will not hire you.
I saw a similar thing on a Facebook group. Someone I knew was looking to hire someone in-house. So they did a post on one of these producer groups, and the rate wasn't the highest, but I mean, I know it's hard, especially like being a business owner, to like try to find someone and pay them,
an in-house
good money.
Right.
Yeah. It was like part-time in-house, and like people were commenting, like saying, "Oh, this rate is hard. How can you do this?" And I was like, guys, like, I don't think they're not on our end, so they don't really see how like unpredictable our business, and to be even offer like a part-time position or even full-time position
is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Like, I don't think they understand like the risk we have to take to do something like that, or the amount of investment. It's just funny to see.
Well, I mean, the people who, I believe the people who do the most complaining are the ones who are also struggling and who, have tried it and failed, and they just want to shift that anger or that sadness, whatever it is, to the people that are out here still trying to do it. And that's the biggest difference for me too, as a professional and really just as a human, was like when I finally realized, you know what, everybody has their stuff, man. And you might say something that rubs me the wrong way, but before I just immediately attack you, let me think, man, what are you going through right now? Like what's happening in your life that's causing you to feel like you need to attack me for something, and not that, I mean, I just try not to get in the back and forth with a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm busy and I don't like to stress about that kind of thing. And so we just typically move on, I mean, a lot of times we don't even respond to it. I mean, the only time I really respond is when somebody's attacking one of my employees, then usually I'll step in.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, you say what you want to me. I don't care. Yeah.
There's too much, there's always too much work to do to be bothered with noise, you know?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like the thing we've learned, like, especially like through doing this podcast, is that every production company is so vastly different in many different small intangible ways that we may not realize is right. Like, everyone has their day rates. There might be like a somewhat of a rough industry standard.
Sure.
But every business also has their own ecosystem, their own type of clientele, their own type of work. And you've figured out a system for yourself. You figured out what works to make things operational, especially across different markets and stuff like that. So yeah, like sometimes like telling a freelancer, it's like, hey, this is what the budget is. This is what you'll be required to do. Do you want it or not? And I find a lot of the time, a lot of people are receptive in that regard as well, because it's like they realize that they could either take the job or not. I remember it was the same for me when I was freelancing like crazy. Like even now, occasionally, like a friend or someone I know would be like, "Hey, I need help with this video. This is the budget, but this is all that needs to be done." It's like, okay, I'll fit that into my schedule.
Right.
I'd to help you out as well, because that's also how you build relationships also with people, right? You know, being there for people when it would be otherwise difficult, you help them in that situation, and then there's going to be a bigger budget maybe down the line, and people don't realize that. Everyone thinks short term, not long term in this industry, and that's one of the biggest problems.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that's crazy is that, you know, a lot of these crews that we work with is like, yeah, it might be less than what you want to charge, but we're also going to hire you 10 times this year, you know? And so it's like that, it's, you know, lifetime value. And that's one thing I try to look at. And granted, we have like rate structures, you know, with what we charge our clients, but that doesn't mean that, you know, next time, and again, it's supply and demand, right? I mean, if we're slow, you're probably going to get a better price from me for the next little bit until we get busier, you know? And I know it's very popular, especially in the forums online, to be like, well, once you charge one thing, that means you can never change it. And I'm like, according to who? I was like, I'll change it the next time. And I don't care if it's the same client, you know? I mean,
ever heard of inflation?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, they're like, well, you know, and again, and I also am big on like, you just never know what people's situations are. You know what I mean? I mean, there might be guys out there that have a full room of equipment and they haven't worked in months. And if you offer them $500, that might save their house. I mean, that might feed their kids or whatever. And I'm not saying you intentionally lowball, but I'm just saying, you know, don't come down on somebody for accepting a lower rate because you have no idea what their situation is. They are not killing the industry, you know, because I'm like, if you wouldn't work for that $500, why do you care? Like, let somebody else make the money. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I'm not saying that's what we offer, but I'm just saying that it's, you know, I've seen that where it's like, everybody's different. Every lane is different. You know, we just mentioned it even just in this conversation about all the different types of productions that people are doing. Well, those are all kind of separate industries really, or at least niches within our industry. And if you break it down even further, you can fan those niches into more sub niches, right? So it's like I really don't love the overarching, oh, you're killing the business or you're killing the industry, or you've got these young bucks that are coming in here and buying these, you know, $2,000 DSLRs and they're going to kill everybody. And I'm like, no, they're not, dude. You know, I mean, you know what? They're hustling and they're hungry, and yeah, they don't have the overhead. And guess what? I was that guy 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I mean, I was killing the local market because I was doing great work for half the cost. All the old cats were pissed at me, but I'm like, you know what? Do a better job. I mean, don't let me take your business, you know? And then obviously I've been able to increase my rates over time, but now I'm dealing with the same thing. I've got young bucks that are knocking on my door trying to take my business. And the funny thing is I hire most of them to come work with us as freelancers because I'm like, I'm not threatened by you guys and you do great work. So why wouldn't I want you to be part of my work product, even if you're submitting a bid to compete with me on the same job?
Yeah, I think also a lot of these freelancers don't realize, especially from our end, like the kind of pressures that we deal with in trying to close projects too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how it is currently in the States, but up here, like I know, like the budgets have shrunk, so we've had to become a lot more competitive to keep the same amount of work coming in.
Yeah.
So I've still tried to pay our guys like similar rates, but sometimes I might go like, hey, listen, it's gonna be a shorter day. Can you do it for this price? If you can't, all good. But you know.
Or what happens when a client or in negotiation comes back and wants to change some clauses in your contract to something that is very, very different that you're not expecting? Because that happened like somewhat recently on a project where I think it was like a liability clause, you know, like where in ours it says like, you know, like the project liability doesn't go past what the actual cost of the project is. And then they wanted to throw in something where it's like, change it from that to 5 times what the cost of the project is. And then I called Dario. I'm like, have you ever gotten this before? Like, this is an odd request. No. Yeah, I told them no, and they were like, okay, that's fine. I think they might have gotten that as a suggestion from ChatGPT because it seemed like a ChatGPT type of edit. But
and the lawyers are starting to do a bunch of stuff now too. We're seeing a lot of that kind of thing. And like my response to that would have been, no problem, but I'm going to 10x the price. And then they would have said, oh, okay, well, never mind. That's fine. You know, I mean, like, I'm not going to increase my risk without also increasing my reward. And, you know, and so, but there's been situations, I swear all the lawyers went to the same conference last year, you know what I mean? And they're like, because now it's like, they're like, oh, well, if you want to shoot a video inside a building in Manhattan in New York City, like, now it's like you're not just dealing with the client business, you're also dealing with the with the building owner, and then the building property management company. And it's like you have to satisfy everybody's insurance requirements. And I mean, I'm talking like you got to be $50 million in this and 50. And I'm like, in the quote, just to
shoot
increase,
a talking head.
Yeah, the quote just to increase that insurance policy is going to be like 10 grand. And I tell the client, I say, look, I'll pass this to you if you want to do that. And I was like, but I'm not paying that. And they're like, and then more often than not, I just say, look, I'm going to send you my COI, my certificate of insurance, and that is good enough for every job we've ever done ever. And the jobs that we have done are 100 times bigger and more complicated than what we're doing on this one. So if this doesn't work for you, then we're just not your guys. Sorry. And then
what happened? Did you close it?
Oh yeah, they always come back and go, yeah, no problem. Like it's not even a big deal. And I'm like, why have we been doing all this? Why have we been, so, or what'll happen is our client will then go to the building owner and say, look, we're a longtime tenant, get off their back. Like we're not, this is ridiculous,
That's crazy.
How does that conversation even come into the picture with the building owner? It's like you're talking with these guys directly. In what world is like the building owner going to be like, sorry, who are you talking to? What vendor's coming in? Who's going to paint your walls?
We see it more in the big cities like New York, Chicago,
Really?
LA, where it's like, I mean, where the real estate world is just so complicated, and it's almost like the tenants have less rights in those big cities than the owners do, which is not really the case, but that's kind of how it comes off. And so what'll happen is like, if you're a company that's renting space in a skyscraper in downtown Manhattan, well, you'll have to actually submit like requests for permits and stuff to have vendors bring stuff into your building, right? For whatever reason. And there's a very specific, like, you can't come in the front door. You can't even come in the back door. You've got to like sneak around this side alley, knock 3 times and wait for and then
elevator.
Go up, and all these things, which again, I'm like, it's literally one cart with a few things. I mean, it's not like we're not loading in a concert venue. I mean, it's literally, and again, I'm okay with, hey, you don't want me to come through in your marble floors, no biggie, but give me an easy way into the building. I mean, don't make me have to, jump through all these hoops just to,
We had that happen one time. They wanted us to go through a service elevator. I swear to God, it was like an hour process. And then at the end, I was like, fuck this. We just took the regular elevators. I was like, it's just
they
a
were
cart.
they were making difficult. They were making it so difficult for no reason, and they were dragging.
At least have the service elevator like available. It's like I'm standing around here. There's no one to talk to. Like I was I'm just gonna go. And it's like the type of building that we've been in like 100 times too. I'm like,
this was at like also 6 or 6:30 a.m. when there's no one in the building.
Well, and it's funny too, because every time I'm really big about process, right? Process and process improvement. And every time we run into a snag like that, we immediately get back together as a team. We say, okay, how do we write something in our process that can help with this? And so, and again, that goes back to like, I'm sure a lot of the people that we work with and work for are like, oh my God, really? Why are we so focused on, PPE, that you have to wear? And I'm like, because if we don't deal with it now, personal protective equipment, if we don't worry about what we're supposed to wear in your plant now, 2 weeks before the shoot, we're going to lose 45 minutes figuring it out on day of, and you don't want that. I don't want that. So now's the time to deal with it, and the same thing, you ask questions like, okay, call time 6:30, you're saying service elevator, but I feel like most of the time these buildings don't even have anybody that work for the building until 8 o'clock or 7:30 or whatever. Is that going to be a problem? And most of the time the client's like, oh, well, man, we didn't even think about that. Or they'll be like, oh, well, we'll just make sure that our office manager meets you down there at 6:30. Okay, cool. I can live with that. I mean, that works for me. But don't, and especially when it's our local freelance crew that's doing it, so they're not even part of these initial conversations, so it's like I dang sure don't want to just make them have to troubleshoot and figure it out at 6:30 a.m. in downtown Manhattan, when they started traveling at 3:30 just to get in on time, you know what I mean? I mean, just crazy stuff like that. But yeah, it's all those little nuances that just make the experience better, not just for the crews, but for the clients and for the whole thing, because it's all of those little friction points that if you can constantly improve those points of friction, just your company gets better, your reputation gets better, and the repeat business goes through the roof, because people are like, man, I worked with this other company and it was it was a total shit show, and it was very frustrating. But then I worked with Six Strong Media, and they were like asking me questions that I thought were kind of dumb, but then day of I was like, huh, okay, there's a reason why they asked all these questions, because this thing is smooth sailing.
Kris, because you do a lot of stuff across the country, I'm wondering, like, in terms of like where you locate yourself geographically on Google and whatnot, is it still in is it in Tennessee, or do you have like separate websites for different pages for different cities?
No, I mean, in terms of just kind of how Google sees us, they see us in Chattanooga, Tennessee, right? So we haven't really tried to game that system much. Haven't had to, really. I think about it a lot. And then my wife, Mandy, who actually runs all of our marketing and sales, she's always like, please don't give me another thing to worry about, but because I always talk about, I'm like, man, back in the day, you wanted a different landing page for each city and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, but I'm not 100% sure that it really matters anymore. And especially if you're trying, because we are national in terms of how we work. And I'm not trying to tell somebody, oh, I have an office in downtown Chicago, but I do have teams in Chicago, who have offices in Chicago. If it's important to you as the client to know that somebody's got an office, these guys got offices, and it might be in their basement. I don't care. But, so it really hasn't been an issue, but I do think about it from an SEO standpoint, like, would we potentially get even more leads if we were doing that? So I don't know. I haven't really gotten there. Again, 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, heck yeah, all about it. And I think I've even done it before. But now that we have the model that we have, I haven't really done it, because our advertising works, our social media stuff works, and we get plenty of leads, from a lot of these different cities. But
I don't think it matters as much anymore. And like, there is one company I know from the States that does that, and it looks, honestly,
There's
it
a
looks
couple.
a little, there's a couple, but like the one I was thinking of, like, because I'd worked with them on a freelance job many years ago, and I remember like seeing how they were going about their marketing, and I'm like, but you guys are not based in these cities, really. You're just making a cold call to like local crews,
right,
and then saying, it's like they say they're in Toronto as well, and then I check the locations that they're putting, and it's like it's all fake, and I'm like, I feel like this is a little bit disingenuous in terms of how you're going about it in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And this company doesn't even have an actual base of operations. I'm like, so where are you actually located? And you can't even determine that. So it's a little weird. I'm not sure how like sustainable that is long term.
Well, and we'll have some clients they'll be bothered by that, right? They'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, we have this thing in wherever, Seattle, but when we're on your website, all we can find is that you guys are in Chattanooga. And I always say, well, yeah, our HQ's in Chattanooga, but we've got teams all over the country. And they're like, oh, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I said, all right, so let me ask you a question. I was like, are you guys a national company? I said, yeah. I said, well, how many offices do you have? And they're like, well, like 13 or whatever. I'm like, cool. Are they all in Seattle? Well, no. And I'm like, that's the point. Like we're everybody, like, we're all doing this now, and post COVID, we're all meeting like this. I mean, when's the last time you actually sat down with somebody for a business meeting?
Never.
That wasn't 2 or 3 layers deep, and even then we're not, unless it's local, and then we might be, or if we're like, hey, you know what? We've got a direct flight to DC, and we're gonna, we don't do a pre-pro, but Mandy and I'd be like, hey, let's go take a 2-day fun trip to DC and see a client at the same time and write it all off, for tax purposes. And so it's like, we'll do some of that, but it's rare, and usually that's just for like the really big clients that we've already done a lot of work with, and we want to keep them coming back. But yeah, everything is virtual these days, and as long as you can prove that you can get the job done, who cares? Who cares?
Where
have
are
you ever had a situation?
Yeah.
Have you
It's like,
have you ever had a situation where like one of the crews like didn't show up to the project, or maybe one of the crew members didn't show up?
We haven't had. I don't want to say never, because we've done thousands of these, and I finally have gotten to. I'm not super old, but I finally got to the point where there's some things I don't remember. I used to take pride in, like, I could pull up any project and tell you the exact details, even if it was 15 years ago. And now I'm like, I don't even remember doing that job. But, no. So it's, I don't think we've ever had a situation where morning of the crew didn't show up. Now, there's been situations where, like, morning of the crew got in a car accident or whatever, or this massive storm hit kind of and just caused chaos. And then so they were going to be late or whatever, or somebody popped up and had, tested positive for COVID as they were being tested going into the building, back when that was a thing. And so we'd have to scramble and figure that out. But normally that was like either we would delay it or whatever, and the client would understand. More often what happens, and again, it doesn't happen much, but it might be like the day before a crew might flake out on us and just say, any number of reasons, man, I'm so sorry. I can't make it. My kid's sick or my whatever it is. So occasionally we'll have to like pivot and find another crew, but that's usually where us having, we try to have 3 crews in every major city just so that we can roll to the next guy and just be like, okay, let's immediately reach out and do and figure out next person up for the job. If for some reason they're not available, a lot of times we'll try to put a little bit of responsibility onto the person who can't make it and just saying, hey, who's one of your buddies or something that you trust to handle this, and again, it's not ideal, but we also don't want to do a last minute cancellation on our client because we're under contract. So it's not enough to be worried about, but it's definitely, you always, I'm a contingency plan kind of guy, right? It's like, you always want to have a plan B, if you can, but I mean, within reason. But yeah, I mean, it's not worth like not growing because you're scared of that being a possibility, because it will. If it can happen, it will, right? What is that? I don't know which law that is, but it's
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, maybe. And so, so it's out there, but we might do 499 shoots and the 500th one is the one that has a little bit of an issue. So I'm like, it's not worth stifling growth for that possibility.
And not to mention, like, you're also going through this vetting process with these people, and
That's right.
Like, acts of God are a different story.
That's right.
If there's a storm, if someone got sick to the point where they can't show up or anything, or they get in a car accident, it's like, that's something that's understandable for everyone, right? But it's like, in terms of those other situations where someone just bails, like, it's more rare than people realize, because also how you vet them. If that is happening more often, if that is happening more often in your business, that means your vetting process is not as good.
That's right.
So that is another process that is another part of your business you have to work on.
Well, and that's the thing I always look at. Anytime there's an issue in our company, I look at 2 things. I look at the process and I look at the people. It's like, is the process broken? And most of the time it's the process. Then, okay, cool. If the process is good, let's start investigating the person. What happened? And a lot of times it's just the person didn't follow the process. And again, that's fixable, right? In theory, it's fixable, as long as they don't have other issues that you don't know about. But so it's like, and the thing too, and again, a lot of this feels like overkill, but when you're operating a company kind of at the scale that we have, all this stuff becomes necessary. More touch points becomes necessary. Like, I might agree to hire you for a shoot next month today, but my project manager is going to reach out to you probably once a week over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Just say, hey, just checking in, just making sure we're still on track. We kind of drip feed information, right? We've learned that that's better than giving them everything in one email, that'll be the last communication will be everything we've sent you over the last month is going to be in one email and a nice package for you to access at the shoot tomorrow. But we're going to send you, a little bit of background information in the first week when we first reach out to you. Then the next week, it might be some additional notes that we picked up or maybe some creative direction. And then the call sheet would come, so it's like there's several touch points with that crew, which keeps them engaged, which also gives them plenty of opportunity to be like, oh crap, I forgot I've got a conflict. And we know about that conflict 2 weeks out versus 2 days out.
How big is your company right now? So it's you and your wife as the main owners, and then who else do you have?
So we've got, in our building right here, we've got my wife, Mandy, our director of productions, Madeline, and our production coordinator, Dylan. And then my dad actually works with us. He's our office manager, bookkeeper kind of thing. So there's 5 of us in the building right now. But yeah, so basically us 5 kind of run the whole show.
It's crazy.
Nice.
You got your dad working with you too. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How did you manage? How did that go in terms of like finding that role? Did he kind of like? Because that's actually an interesting thing to keep in mind. Like having family involved in your business. Like we've heard several times people would go into business and then their spouses would be part of the business in some way,
Sure.
shape, or form. But I've never heard of like someone's parents being involved. Like, was there
Probably
like a
retired
need?
accountant.
Well, he's not an accountant, which is interesting, but yeah, it's no, it's. So my belief in the family side of things is that family just happens to be a benefit of it, right? It's not, you don't hire somebody because they're family. You hire them because of the skills that they bring to the business so that they can contribute to growing the business, right? And the fact that you're family just means, awesome, man, I get to hang out with you more than I normally would, in real life. But you have to bring something to the table. And like even with Mandy, we've been together 10 years, married for 6, all second marriages. And basically she was a client of mine 20 years ago. 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it was like she worked for the Chamber of Commerce. So I've seen her in action. I mean, she is an incredible relationship builder, business development. She runs events like no one I've ever seen. And she's so smart and she's fast and she's efficient. And basically I was like, all right, I need somebody to run marketing for our company. And she and I had actually just started dating at the time. And she was just like, ooh, she's like, I don't know that I want to do that because I think this is going well and I don't want it to crash and burn. I said, well, here's the deal. I was like, when I look at this job description, you're the face, you're the one. I mean, that can do this. I mean, even if you and I weren't dating, I would be offering you this job. And so she reluctantly took it. She was thinking she might do it for 6 months or whatever to run its course. And here we are, 10 years later. But it was like her skill set is very much, she's way better she does all the boring details of sales that I could never really get into. And so it was hard for me to get really good traction on a regular. I mean, I would do well, but it was roller coaster, right? I mean, up, down, up, down. She's just beating this thing to death every single day, following up with hundreds of people, all these things. She's writing a contract. She can write a contract in about 1/10 of the time it takes me to do it. And so it's like she's just so fast because I'm an overthinker. I overthink everything. So what works is that she gets it out, but then she sends it to me, and then I just give it a quick once over to make sure that legally we're not obligating ourselves to anything weird. And then we send it out. So it's like our turnaround with contracts and leads and everything is light speed compared to what it used to be. Tremendous value. She's also very good on the HR side of things. She's great at hiring people. She's great at even helping. She assists with kind of the more of the softer side of these crews that we hire, and recruit and that kind of stuff. Because I'm good at the tech and the creative and all that. And Madeline is really the one that's looking at how they communicate. But Mandy is almost like she can just look at you and know, okay, yeah, that's a good person, And it's really kind of a cool skill set that she has. And then my dad. He retired as a commanding officer of the U.S. Navy, right? I mean, this guy is like process dude, right? Operations guy. So it's like, so when he first came in, he cleaned up a lot of our processes and really kind of got us to a point where I was able to then kind of say, okay, let me take those processes and amplify them and make them truly more like what we need in our business. And so he early on, because he joined us in 2016, he was much more helping with operational processes and getting those things figured out so that I could grow the business the way that I wanted to. But then he's kind of settled in as he's become more retired, right? He's settled into more of just like, he handles accounts receivable, accounts payable, he sends the invoices. He works with our CPA on the tax stuff. I mean, so it's all the non-billable crap that I don't want to deal with, is the stuff that he's been working on. And then it's interesting, the project coordinator, Dylan, is actually my son-in-law, which is kind of neat.
Oh, wow.
Is there anyone that's not related to you that works for your
Madeline,
business?
Yeah,
Madeline,
I was gonna say.
Yeah, but we like to say she is family. So it's like, we love her just like family. So that's why it works. But Dylan comes from a background of, he used to be the guy that Maple Street Biscuit Company would hire to go into a city and like open a store, and run the store and all that. And I mean, he was doing this at like 22 and 23 years old, and he's 30 now. So he's just very, very process driven, very detail oriented, very technical. He doesn't have any true training in this realm, but he just gets it. I mean, like this whole setup in here, and I mean, and again, he did all this in like 5 minutes. I was like, man, I don't know what I want to do, but I just want it to look better than the normal Zoom meeting. And he's like, well, how about this and how about that? And I'm like, well, shit, that looks pretty good. Yeah, let's run with it. You know, I mean, and again, we could have dialed it in even more, but it was just like, you know, hey, it looks pretty cool. Let's do it. And so it's cool having him on board. You know, and he and my daughter just had our first grandchild. So it's like, so the benefit too is I get to see my grandson pretty often, you know, because, you know, she slides through in the middle of the workday, you know, and it's like,
intern.
and of course, everything just stops.
A little
you know?
intern, yeah.
Yeah. When Milo's here, everything just stops until she's ready to leave. And then we go back to work, you know, or whatever.
That's a true family business right there. Like like very literal in the sense, you know, like you're not just any other company that says we're like a family. No, you are a family.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking like, I don't know why I just pictured this in my head though. Cause like you said your dad was in the Navy and I'm just picturing him like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket talking to all your videographers.
Yeah.
Like, let me see your video face.
Yeah. No, it's really, it's not that at all. I mean, he's been retired. He's been retired from the Navy he retired in '98. So whatever that math is, you know, and basically he's, you know, and then he went in the corporate world for like 15 years. And I think in that corporate world, he really had to reluctantly or begrudgingly, however you want to say it, had to get more kind of non-military in terms of just how to deal with people. I mean, because again, he's process. You want to get something done, he's going to get it done. But a lot of times in these big corporations now, there isn't really, I mean, they have an org chart, but there's not really a lot of authority. I mean, everybody is
slow.
Yeah, everybody's,
so
we're all
slow.
on the same team, and let's meet about what we're going to meet about, and then meet again so we can talk about what we met about, you know, and you know, and that's just
wasting time,
and that drives him absolutely nuts. And as soon as they got to the point where they were going to put all the managers and all the workers out in the same bullpen in low wall cubes, he was like, "Yeah, I'm out." You know, he was like, "This is crazy" or whatever. So he bailed.
The cubicle broke a military man.
Well, it's funny because he actually had a cube, but all of like the upper management didn't. They had offices, and then as soon as they made the upper management basically join Gen Pop, you know, he was like, this is not going to work. And so he was like, yeah, I'm gone. So he retired.
He liked the cubicles because it was part of the structure, right? That made sense to him. But then getting rid of the offices. Yeah,
he's like executives need to be able to operate and make decisions without everybody else being in the know 100% of the time. You know, he was like, that's not going to work. Yeah. You know, he was, and again, he's very military. He goes, and the way he's used to doing it, lives are at stake, right? I mean, if you take 2 seconds longer to make a decision, someone can die, you know, and
products are at stake here.
Yeah. Right. And
shareholder values at stake.
Yeah. So he was like, you know what, I'm ready to go. And he had his military retirement. He had a retirement from the corporate stuff. And then, you know, we had a need in our business, and, you know, and he and I have always been really good friends. So it was cool for him to come and help us out. And again, I was thinking, I don't know how long this is going to be. Might be short term, might be whatever. But it's turned out to be a pretty good thing. And I mean, and, you know, and he manages that part of the company very well. And, you know, it just kind of, I always like to say I'm like the center of the wheel, right? And I've got all these spokes, and, you know, and I'm just kind of more in like a consultative role in all of these spokes versus being the guy that like has to drive everything all the time. And that really has been a great move for our business. And I mean, at some point he'll be ready to like, for real retire. I mean, he'll turn 71 this year. And, you know, and so, I mean, at some point it'll make sense for him to move on. And so we're kind of thinking about, okay, well, what does that succession plan look like in terms of bringing somebody else in to do that? Currently
the granddaughter.
I say there currently isn't another family member who's qualified for that yet, but maybe that'll change in another 5 years. Who knows?
That's awesome.
Yeah, family succession.
One thing I definitely want to bring up, because we spoke about this in the pre-interview that I never really gave much thought to, but let's talk a little bit about margins, because after that call, I did go through all of our invoices for the year and calculated all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about that.
What was it?
Well, it was, so you're talking about margins.
No, I mean, what was your calculation?
Like in terms of
margin.
We actually do pretty well on the margins. There were some projects that our margins were really low on.
Variance.
But for the most part, the numbers were good. I was surprised.
That's good.
I thought the numbers would be pretty bad. And I did do like 2 calculations for the margin. So I did one where I just calculated the expenses as like the freelancer costs, and then another one where I included like our time in it as another cost, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
just to see like what the difference would be and whatnot. But surprisingly, like the numbers were pretty good. I thought they were gonna be like okay, but for the most part,
that's good to know. Well, and I think and that's cool because it opens up obviously a bigger conversation that it can even go back to like when we're talking about setting rates for freelancers and that kind of stuff. I mean, it all, you know, I always talk about, I tell our team all the time, and even people that I've coached over the years, I'm like, look, the spreadsheet makes the decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you make decisions outside of the spreadsheet, then you're purely making decisions on emotion. And more often than not, that's not going to work out in the long term, right? Doesn't mean that it can't. It doesn't mean that you can't insert a little bit of emotion, but it just means that you have to be smart about how you run your company. So yeah, the margins, I mean, for me, it's just been, it's always about, we negotiate rates with our clients, right? And we have kind of, I don't want to say set rates because they are negotiable. I mean, we have guides, right? Of
Leeway.
What we try to follow, at least as a starting point. But really, a new type of pricing strategy that I created a few years back, because it was just taking too long to come up with quotes. And a lot of times it was like I would look at the price and I'm like, I don't even know where the hell I got that from because it just doesn't feel right for what this job is. I might have quoted way more than I think I should have or way less. And I need to streamline this, right? So I could devise a little strategy where my spreadsheet is anytime we're doing a new job and we're getting, we have the discovery call, so we understand the scope and all those kind of things. Well, the first thing we do is we build a cost budget that says, okay, here's what it's going to cost us to make this video or to do this project. And then we just add our margin on top of that. And that becomes what we charge, and I even have the spreadsheet built where it's like, okay, if I want to do a 50% margin, this is what we charge the client, 60 and 70, right? In some jobs, especially the lower budget jobs, you can have a higher margin on because there's still, if it's a $3,500 job, even if it's only going to cost me $1,000 to have it produced, like that's a pretty healthy margin, but I'm not going to charge less because there are kind of floors and ceilings too of sort of what you should expect to pay as a client in some of these worlds. So the bigger projects, obviously the margins tend to be smaller, but we still try really hard to make sure that it's no lower than 50%. Now, the caveat is if it's a $100,000 project, and I'm going to clear 40 grand, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I'd rather do 50, but if the way it works out, because sometimes there might be like an enormous talent cost, right? That goes into it. And I've just, for whatever reason, it's always kind of rubbed me wrong to like mark up talent significantly, and I don't know why, but it just feels weird, right? Because I'm like, the client could literally hire that talent and maybe they pay a little bit more, 15% more than we would get because we know how to negotiate with them. Or they're giving us kind of an agency rate. And I was like, but they're not going to pay 50% more, you know what I mean? Or 100% more. So I've always kind of like, and sometimes when we have real heavy talent costs or real heavy location costs, that'll skew those numbers a little bit. But we'll kind of carve that out though and say, okay, but keep in mind, if we take those costs out, the margin is still rock solid.
Yeah,
I like how you price your new pricing strategy guide is pretty good. Because like how we go about it is, the part we always have trouble with is figuring out the pre-production costs, and that's always like our point where we can change the budget to kind of like change the estimate.
It's our leeway.
The budget that's our
right.
leeway point. So okay.
Well, and that's what we started doing. So like for your own time, how much you're spending in pre-pro or whatever, assign a cost to that. Now, you might elect to donate that time if you think it's going to make you more competitive to get the job, right? And even though, yes, it is costing you, but it's not costing you, And so what we started doing is saying, you know what, let's put time in there for creative director or creative direction or whatever, and maybe assign a $50 an hour cost to that. Because remember, at the end of the spreadsheet, I'm marking it up to give us the margin that we need. So it's still it would still correlate to like $100 an hour or $150 an hour or whatever. But I'm not putting $150 an hour as my cost, because I wouldn't pay anybody $150 an hour to do that task, right? Because I wouldn't make any money if I did that. So I'm looking at, if I was hiring another creative director to do this role, what would I offer them per hour, or what could I offer them in order for all of these numbers to make sense? And it might be less than you would traditionally hire a freelance creative director for. Yeah. But in this case, I'm that guy,
Yeah. Like I had to kind of like guesstimate when I was calculating our margins, but I think going forward, one thing I'm going to try to get us to do is just actually calculate how much time we do spend in like pre-production and like helping out with the post, just to like get some more accurate numbers. And then assigning the cost of that is pretty easy. It's basically what we pay ourselves a year. Just figure out the hourly for that, and then just get
and you can even tweak the margin too. Like in that case, you could say, okay, well, instead of doing 50% margin, maybe I'm going to look at 60, and I know that my time's covered in that. And so again, it's just really, it's all personal preference, right? And at the end of the day, what's going to make you competitive? And that's one cool thing about Mandy and I. And sometimes I get frustrated. A lot of times I've been frustrated over the years by this, but because I'll send her the budget and she'll immediately shoot it down. She's like, that's too much. That's more than they're going to pay. And I'm like, how do you know that? She's like, I know these people. I've been dealing with them. Like I understand. And I feel like that's going to be too much. And so I did a little experiment. I'm like, well, send it anyway. And then sure enough, they're like, oh, it's too much. And then they'll come back and they'll say, this is what we want it to be. And then she just kind of does the wife thing and rolls her eyes at me because it's basically exactly what she said. And so I'm just kind of like, I'm like, okay, here we go. So it's what we tend to do is if we're super busy, I mean, like it's going to be hard to take on another project. We're quoting at that kind of 60% margin, right? Just to supply and demand. But if we've got time in the schedule, things aren't crazy busy, we close a lot more kind of at that 50% margin than we do, for the higher margin. So it's really just kind of a balancing act on that. There's some jobs that we'll think we're only going to have a 50% margin, but it'll end up being a 82% margin because for some reason during the planning process, we figured out a more efficient way to do something or more whatever, maybe we figured out that, hey, we don't necessarily need that extra crew member because it just doesn't make sense anymore based on how this has come together. And the way that we design our proposals is that we're not, unless a client specifically asks for it, we're not giving them a line by line price that says, hey, this person costs this much and this piece of equipment costs this much. It's basically, hey, you got our crew for a day. Here's what's included in that. And this is your price. But even what's included in that is still, it's not micro every little piece of thing. It's audio recording package. Well, what the hell does that mean, right? It's cinematic lighting package. Well, what does that mean? So we know what that means. And that just means that, hey, we're going to bring what we need to make this look good and make it sound good. And we'll make sure we have enough bodies on the ground to do the work. But it might be 4 people. It might be 3. It might be 1. Sometimes if it's a super simple interview and we've got a very talented DP, we don't have to hire an audio guy and a PA or any of that.
Especially if there's only like one or 2 interviews that day.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm going to start implementing that in our.
I like that.
And then we also. Sorry, I was just saying. One thing we also add is like we started doing this in recent years, where it's like, oh, if there's a whole lot of logistics that are going to be happening on the shoot day, you've got to pay for a field producer. Like we've got to add a field producer to the package so that they can help manage all that, because we can't expect our crew member, our DP, to manage all of those producer functions as well and still be able to get us the product that we need in the footage.
Yeah, that's a key thing. Like we usually try to have a producer on set for most of the projects, and usually that is like the baseline must, because they've been in communication with the client, they know what is needed, and then that helps the DP focus on their job, and allows the producer to kind of like handle and manage everything, especially when you have multiple crew people trying the logistics of getting everyone together, especially if you're dealing with one of those buildings where there's a lot of red tape about how you enter, that's the producer's job.
That's right.
The DP has enough stuff to deal with in terms of unloading gear, prepping gear, and all that stuff. It's like, that's another thing to keep into account. But I like what you said in terms of like how you keep it like a rough range. Cause like we had a project recently where I sent out an estimate where it was pretty much line by line item in terms of like the crew that is going to be there. But he said like, hey, that's fine, but can we do the budget for this much? And then I realized, in this situation, we don't really need this crew member on the set. So I just removed them. But that can kind of be like simplified a little bit more with your
How do you
approach.
so how do you put it? So like for audio operator, you just put audio package. What about for like videographer? You just put video package. Is that how you word it?
I mean, we typically would say like, you know,
Two camera.
2 4K cameras, you know, cinematic lighting package, audio recording package, and personnel, right? And so it's
So
like
you just put end person. Oh, I see. Okay, clever. I like that.
yeah. And again, if it's like, you know, you guys would probably need more detail just because you know how we do what we do, right? I mean, you might be like,
Yeah.
hey, but I want to know, and I'm the same way even with the crews that we hire. I'm like, okay, cool, but how many people are on the ground? Because a lot of times we need their names, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, whatever. But that's usually a last minute piece of knowledge, not a front end while we're making the sale piece of knowledge, you know?
Right,
And so I
right.
think, and so more often than not, what we find is clients don't care. I mean, they trust that you're going to, you know, do what you do. Maybe 1 out of 10 contracts will have a client call back, and it's usually some in-house video guy who's mad that he didn't get asked to do the project, right? And they're like, well, what do you mean audio recording package? And I'm like, well, I mean, we'll have, you know, typically we bring a shotgun mic and a wireless lav, but that's really about what it is, unless it's multi-people. And if we get into that, then we're typically talking about having a dedicated like audio tech, but this isn't really what that is. And he's like, oh, okay. You know, and I'm just like, you know, trust us to do what we know how to do. And, you know, but if you ask for more detail, we'll give you more. It's just most of the time we don't have to, and nobody cares.
Yeah, and especially it's like they don't really need to know if there's going to be 1 or 2 PAs on set necessarily.
And what
right?
the
It's like-
and what the cost per like
Yeah.
PA is gonna be.
Well,
Be, right? So
in a lot of it, it's like anything in business. It's kind of like, you know, it's one thing to know what you are, but it's even more valuable to know what you're not, right? And to me, it's like if I get an agency or a production company that wants a crew, and if they're like, we need this many people, and it's totally over, like just way too many people, inefficient, and they're like, oh, and it has to be the Sony T8 7.9er, you know, Venice,
Alpha.
whatever, you know, and it has to be that exact model. And oh, by the way, we have to have 5 of them, right? And I'm like, dude, no rental house is going to have 5, and B, no. Like I'm just sorry, you know. I mean, I understand, cool, and somebody will gladly do that for you, but what makes our model work is that all of our crews have what they have. And you know, and that's why another reason why we're able to get the pricing that we do is because we're not asking them to use something they don't own, right?
Yeah.
And now they may not get hired because they don't own a certain package if it's requested, but if it gets too crazy, I mean, some of these clients are like literally day of or day before, they're like, oh, well, now our DP who's being flown in from LA, right, who doesn't even carry his own tripod, you know, is like, you know, oh, well, he decided that he wants this T19er particular gimbal. And I'm like, okay, great. But no, you know, like, sorry, you know, we can't do it that last minute, you know, or whatever. And so we were getting really stressed by having, because we want to do good work for people. Right. And so, but what we learned is that sometimes, really more often than you would like to think, the best way to serve people is to tell them no, you know, tell them that you can't, you know, and then at that point they might be reasonably frustrated at the moment, but when they get on set, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is fine. You know, I mean, it really wasn't a big deal. And I think a lot of times people are inserting their importance, right, by having feedback along the way. It's kind of like the executive producer doesn't say anything until the day he shows up on the shoot, and then he starts asking questions like, well, I thought we were going to have a 12 by 12 reflective panel over here, and I thought we were going to do it. And I'm like, who the hell said that? You know, like, what? I mean, where did that come in? You know, and I used to get offended by that and kind of like feeling like that I wasn't doing a good job. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that. You know, you just have to know when to roll with it. And I think everybody has to kind of raise their hand and have their input, you know, just so that they feel like they're justifying their paycheck, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I love what you said. It's like, yeah, and then you have so-and-so DP flying in who doesn't even carry his own tripod.
God.
Like, oh, that's so
Yeah.
comical the way you phrase it.
I'm like,
I
you
love it.
need an AC for what? Well, I mean, our DP, you know, likes to be hands off. I'm like, cool. And I was like, so he doesn't touch the camera when he's shooting? Like, oh, no. He just doesn't want to, like, you know, carry anything. And I'm like, okay. And I was like,
So a PA.
I was like, a PA would work for that. And they're like, well, but he might. I'm like, all right, whatever, you know.
He doesn't want to do this you know?
Yeah. Well, what's hilarious, like I actually, for this same client, we were running short on crew members because they kept adding. So I eventually was like, you know what? I'll knock off the dust. And I was the audio guy for like a week at this big, automotive shoot. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not rocket science. I know how to do it. I don't like doing it, but I'll do it, So I'm like, and what's hilarious is I'm producer director, right? But by nature, by experience, but I'm running audio. And I'm just watching this DP work, and I'm just like, I mean, literally, we'd set a shot up, he would get a take and be like, all right, cool, let's move on. And I'm like, dude, that was only one take. I was like, even if it was perfect and that's the one you're going to use, I was like, what if something's wrong with that file? Like, at least do a safety, just something. I didn't say it because I wasn't the one in charge, but I'm like, and this is the guy that's creating all of these logistical challenges for us as a crew. And I'm like, and you're literally getting one shot and moving on every time. And I'm like,
oh
wow.
my God.
So it's like by the time, the AC's hauling everything in, setting it up, getting everything in focus, framing it the way that he wants it. And then it's like took more time to set that up than for him to hit record and go, all right, that's cool. He stops the record and then he starts walking to the next location and everybody's looking around like, what just happened? Like, what is going on
that was
here?
it?
That was it.
At least
that was
review it.
Yeah.
At least review it if it's just the one take.
Yeah, none of that. And I'm like, hey, must be nice, man. Must be nice.
Wonder what kind of experience that DP has where it's like it's probably comes down to like a lot of these like crazy film sets where you have like such little time and you have to get so much different.
Bro, even then they still do multiple takes.
And I don't know how it is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
and I don't know how it is in Canada, but in America, especially with these big kind of blue states or blue cities, democratic cities, the unions are really big. So it's like, you have like in Detroit, a lot of automotive production goes on, but the union situation makes it so complicated to do work up there because it's like, you got to hire somebody to hold the camera. Somebody has to be hired to turn the camera on. Somebody has to be hired. And it's like, I've got 30 people on a set and I only need 3, and it's like, but you can't because you have to have, there's got to be a different person has to be the one that actually drives the van that brings the production crew and equipment to the site. And I'm like, and I'm being a little bit over dramatic, but it's very like, it's like that, or something happened to the breaker. We can't just go look at it and see what's going on. Like, no, you got to hire this union guy who's not even on site, who's going to be here in 3 hours, to check the breaker. Meanwhile, we just don't have power for 3 hours, And so it's like, that's why I try to shy. We don't do a lot of hard marketing and advertising in some of those more union driven cities because they're really complicated to work in.
We haven't had it. I mean, we can't do any union-based projects, so I think we would have to also be unionized. Is that how it works, Kyrill? No. So, I guess we don't have to because I know, Thing was telling me he's done some union-based projects. It's just the crew needs to be
right. Yeah.
So I think here it would be tied to basically, if the actor you're getting is unionized, then everyone else needs to be unionized.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is total bullshit because now it's like, I mean, it just balloons the cost of the project up. So, I mean,
for nothing.
For a lot of companies like ours or like in the corporate space, they're not going to use unionized people because it's just...
That's right.
I can't imagine how much the cost is going to go up by, right?
Well, and that's any time that we're looking for a crew member or a talent or whatever. I mean, we're very adamant about non-union. Like I'm just not going to mess with it, and we're able to, a lot of times we can skirt the issue of, we can go into a very unionized city and still work non-union, but we just have to be creative in how we get around that kind of stuff. And I mean, and again, it's not we're not doing anything illegal, but it's just kind of like,
how is that enforced? That's the other thing I've always wondered.
In the States, if in the city, like the whole city, like every project needs to be unionized. Is that
no? I mean, it's not quite like that, but it could be like if it's a big building in Manhattan, and if it's like, oh, well, every service in the building is union driven, right? Then like a big convention center or something, then the buildings would be like, well, any vendor that's in here has to be part of whatever union.
Right. We almost ran into a situation like that shooting for another production company at a venue downtown. Like, they almost didn't let us shoot because they're like, oh no, like this was supposed to be communicated to you guys. And the client's like, no one told us about this.
Yeah.
So then like the the CMO got involved, and he's like, he got in their face, and then they finally let us shoot.
Oh, yeah.
But it got to a point where almost like they wouldn't let us shoot, and that was like the first time I've encountered that, which was strange.
It's funny because that building, I think was it the MTCC?
It's right across Beanfield, or across Hotel
BMO
X. You know,
Field?
Hotel.
Oh,
you know how
yeah,
Hotel X is here? It's like literally east of Hotel X and south of Beanfield.
Yeah, so there's like a special area in Toronto, which is like they call it the CNE grounds, which are everything in that area is union based. But it's funny because there's always videographers in these event halls
That are not
other
unionized.
content. So it's like, are you basically just deciding that like because it was hired by the client, like for this bigger ish event, then it has to be like, there's so much gray area when it comes to this stuff, and that's why we try to avoid it as much as possible, because it's not worth the headache.
Well, and for me, I prefer to keep it gray in those situations, because then it's plausible deniability, right? Like I can walk in and say, I didn't know this was going to be a problem, and then I just keep working, you know, and unless they can physically arrest me or physically detain me, I'm going to keep working. You guys can deal with
what are you
that
gonna do?
outside, you know? I mean, you know, hey, I get it, man. I understand, but I've been hired to do a job, and that's my client over there. You can go speak to them, but in the meantime, I got to keep doing my job, you know. And more often than not, it's just people that are, you know, again, I don't want to like give any advice that somebody uses and then goes out and gets arrested or hurt or whatever. So I mean, definitely know the rules, right, or try to. But a lot of times I'll ask the client, or even part of the pre-pro with the client, hey, are there any union issues we're going to have to deal with? And they'll typically be like, oh, you know, I don't know. We'll check into that. And we'll say, cool, we're going to operate like there's not. And then, but if there is, we're going to rely on you to make sure that we understand, so that we can help, we can navigate what we need to do the job.
I'd rather not even bring that up, because the situation that helped us that day was the fact that they didn't communicate to the client that we would have had to be unionized.
That's right.
So if the client
That's on
had
them.
asked,
That's technically on them.
it was, and that's why they let us. But it was
right.
like that was the only time I ran into that situation. It was so strange, because we
Yeah.
shot all around that building,
Yeah.
in different venues around that, like even
different
across
clients.
that building, no problems ever. It was just that one time.
Well,
So weird.
And I think it's footprint too, right? Like if you roll in with a small crew and you don't have, and it's not and the production isn't a big production, right? In terms of you're not having to wheel in massive dollies and doing all, you know, stuff that's going to make somebody go, wait a minute, you know, I mean, anytime in those situations where we're feeling like that maybe there could be some of those kind of issues, we always tell our people, we're like, look, pack small, stay small, think small. You know, I mean, if you can do it with one DSLR camera and a small gimbal or something, like do that. Like don't draw unnecessary attention just for the hell of it, you know. And like if you're going to go into a state park or a national park and film some stuff, just be small. Like and be into, like if there's 20 people between crew and client, you guys don't all need to be standing in the same space at the same time. Like spread out, you know. I mean, do just anything that's not going to make it obvious that's what's happening. And again, even then, 9 out of 10 times, it's fine. You're just going to get that one person that's got an issue with it that'll come over who's trying to do their job. But honestly, we've gotten so good at kind of somebody on the team just pulls them to the side and just keeps them busy until we get what we get. And then we say, you know what, we're so sorry. We'll make sure that we follow, you know, we'll check in on this next time. Have a nice day. And then we walk away, and, you know, and they've done their job, right? And we've done ours, and everybody's happy, you know?
Yeah, you know what it is? I think it becomes more of a problem when they start to see a lot of equipment that one of their guys can probably operate. You know, if they see like someone with a small DSLR and a gimbal, they're like, okay, that guy's doing his own thing. But the second they see someone on a big tripod filming the whole space, like 2 or 3 cameras from all different angles, if, like you said, if there's a crane, they're like, damn, that's 4 union jobs that we could have had right there. That's when they get, that's when they get really mad, you know. But it's like you put it, if it's something small, your own camera equipment that you're dealing with, then usually it's not an issue.
Well, and honestly, it's like anything in life. I mean, more often than not, a civil conversation can solve the problem, you know. And it's like, and again, I try to go back to what I said earlier. I try to put myself in that person's shoes. Okay, they're even if they're being an asshole, you know, they're still, they think I'm at least going to choose to believe they think they're doing their job. They think they're doing what they should be doing. And I can work with that. Hey, man, tell me what's going on. Well, you're supposed to have this, supposed to have that. Man, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I've shot here before, or this is the first time I've shot here, and I didn't realize that was a thing. And I'll be like, so walk me through, like, what is the process? Meanwhile, the team's still shooting, right? And I'm separating the person so they can't interrupt the production. And I'm just like, man, so tell me, like, what's the process and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. It's like, I tell you what, next time we'll absolutely make sure that we look into that, because I know this is putting you in a tough spot. It's putting me in a tough spot. None of us want to be in a tough spot, and so then basically, and then a lot of times you kind of talk them off the ledge, and then everything's good. We live to fight another day, and then next time
20 and that's it.
I haven't slipped them 20. I've slipped plenty of landscapers 20s over the years to get them to turn off the lawnmowers. But it's nice. I don't know that I want to slip like a federal employee, a 20. That's probably not good business. But so anyway, so I mean, there's always problems, right? But they rarely are problems that are going to keep you from doing your work. And I think just like anything in life, more often than not, it's just how do you approach the problem? How do you handle the problem? And I think if you do it with a cool head, more often than not, you're going to be fine. Every now and then you're going to have that, I don't know if you guys call them that up there, but Karens, that are going to step in and have a problem.
We got those
try
too.
Try to create issues or whatever. But it's really just if we, and I train all of my people, I'm like, look, don't get mad, stay calm, and just work through it. And I was like, and that's how we can get through 99% of these issues. And we've been fortunate so far, even in some very heavy unionized situations, it's like, if somebody's really pushing back, like in a convention center in New York City or whatever, you just keep asking questions that eventually kind of gets them into a corner. And I'm like, okay, so where do we go from here? Because this is what I need. You're not telling me a solution, and the solution can't be that we just pack up and go home. So like, where are we? And then they'll be like, you know what, this time it's fine. Just do it, just next time, whatever. And I'm like, cool, I'll probably never be in this building again, ever, so, but yeah, no problem, and again, if we have a client that says, hey, we're going to do a shoot in that same building 2 or 3 years down the road, I will say, you know what, last time we had a little bit of this issue potentially. I don't think it'll be a problem, but just want to let you know. So if it does come up, because what I don't want our clients to think too, and a lot of times clients will think this because they don't know any better, they'll think that we should have known as the production company,
right.
Like we should have known. So I try to spread that risk out a little bit, or that responsibility out, to say, hey, look, we typically operate non-union. We know some of these places can have some union requirements. Are you guys aware of anything? And most of the time I'm like, no. And I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to operate as if it's not an issue. But if it comes up, just know we'll deal with it the best we can. And if somebody from your team is there, can help deal with it so that we don't have to stop progress on the production, even better. And usually they're like, hey, that's cool. High five. Let's go.
And this is one of those situations where having a producer at the shoot
absolutely.
is a big plus, because like you said, the producer will be the one handling this problem, and the crew can still work and shoot. Because if you have a cinematographer there, and then the more time that they're talking with this person, they can't do their job as well. So this is one of those situations where it's important. But like you said, as long as you're very cordial, respectful, and you're listening, most of the time things will just kind of go away. Like, I think a lot of the time people just want to be heard by someone. In these kind of situations, like you said, they just want to do their job and say something. I don't think they're actually going to push you out in any way.
And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but what I've also figured out too a lot of times is most of the people that have problems don't really have the authority to do anything about it. And so it's kind of like, I'm like, cool, well, who are you? Like, oh, well, I'm so-and-so. All right, cool. So where do we go from here? Like, oh, well, I just, you just need to know that. I'm like, all right, so what's going to happen if I continue doing this? I'm like, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're going to keep going. Thank you. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Go deal with it. Go talk to someone.
Well, which is crazy too. And again, this is silly to say, but I'm 6'5". I'm a big dude. So when I'm typically people aren't going to physically try to do anything to me unless I'm like for real breaking the law, which I try not to make a habit of. But but again, I think a lot of people in our industry, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of risk, right? You got to try things, and in order to be successful, you have to try things. You have to be willing to fail, and sometimes you have to be willing to fail like miserably. And I think a lot of these little roadblocks are what people will do. Will sort of feed that negativity in their mind to be like, oh, well, I can't go do that because they might have a problem. Or remember last time when that park ranger had an issue with us shooting out here? Well, gosh, I'm not even going to bid on that because I don't want to deal with that potential again, and I think it's like, we've just got to get past that and be like, look, I mean, unless you just for real break the law, right? I mean, there's not really, you can't do much for that. But even that, I mean, think about how many people are breaking laws and don't ever get held accountable for it. So even that, it's like, all right, if you're trying in good faith to do a good job and do things above board, just about everything that you run across is going to work out. I mean, it's not going to be a big deal. And again, like if the park ranger comes up and has an issue, if I'm immediately firing back or whatever, and it becomes emotional and all that, that's not going to go anywhere. Even if I'm pissed off, I don't need to act pissed off. I need to just be like, hey man, no, hey, step over here, talk to me. What are we dealing with? What's the deal? What's going on? Well, this, that, and the other. Okay, cool. So how can we make you happy but still get what we need? And a lot of times the concession is nothing. I mean, it's like, oh, well, if you guys can just only be here for another 15 minutes, hey, no problem, man. Where should we go ahead and move it to somewhere else? Because it might take us a little bit longer than that. And they might be like, you know what? It's fine. No biggie. It's like, they just need to be heard, right? They just need somebody to acknowledge that they are there and they have an issue with it. All right, cool. No problem. You tell me, what can we do to make this work? And if they're like, well, we need you to leave. Okay, well, that can't be an option right now. So what can we do to kind of get closer to the middle? And then that's usually like, well, can you just be here another 30 minutes? Yeah, I think we can make that work. And then you do your best to try to honor that. I mean, if that's what the agreement is, to try to, hey, tell everybody, hey guys, we got to speed this up. Or I'll say, hey, okay, cool. But is there another place we can go that you'll be okay with, as long as we can get kind of similar scenery and all that? And they might be like, you know what, there's this little back area. Nobody's really back there. It looks good. It'll be quiet. And that'll keep my bosses off of my back if you guys can just go do that. Hey, you know what? Problem solved. Let's go.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can probably end on that note. So
the don't follow the rules note.
Yeah.
I love it.
But be nice about it.
That's right.
That's the key thing.
That's right.
Nice. Okay. Well, Kris, where can people find you?
Our website is 6strongmedia.com. That's the number 6strongmedia.com. And we're on, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, kind of all under that same company name. So, I mean, that's pretty much where we are in the online space. And then, of course, our HQ is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but we do work all over the country. And, we certainly work with global companies as well that are looking to do work in the United States.
Nice. And how did you come up with the name 6 Strong Media?
You're never going to believe this, but there's 6 in my family. So.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of
6
sense
strong.
now.
That's right. We're 6
It really
strong.
is a family business,
Yeah,
at this point. Like, even the name is related to
Well,
it.
and that's
Amazing.
and that's a whole nother story, but I can give it to you in like 30 seconds. I had this other company from 2000 to 2010, and really was just super, I'm going to grow this thing to be a $50 million company. So it was just, everything was business. I worked around the clock. Like, I made it a point to be at all my kids' stuff, but mentally I wasn't there because I was just constantly just trying to grow this business and on the phone solving problems and all these things. And then I had a partner with that business. Well, when we decided to shut that one down, I started this company literally 24 hours later, just because my lawyer said, dude, give me a 24-hour break between the old company and the new company, just so that I can not have to deal with any of crossover stuff. Like, all right, cool. But at that point I was like, how do I make sure, because I am a family man, and I'm like, how do I truly do that in a way, and I was like, what's really most important in all of this situation is that my 6 are strong, and that we're good. My kids are taken care of. My wife is taken care of. I'm taken care of. And so it just was kind of a cool vibe. It was like, man, we're 6 strong. And I'm like, 6 Strong Media, let's do this. And so that's what it's been. And, I love it. And I think even now, as we're doing all these really impressive, big things, Mandy and I are always very just like, okay, but how is this next decision going to impact the 6, right? And of course the 6 is now about 12 in terms of significant others and kids and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, how is it going to impact that? But I think the 6 signifies everybody in the family, right? And not just our family, but our employees and our employees' families and our freelancers' families and all these kinds of things. And so it's just really, with it being on the letterhead and it being at the top of every contract and everything, it's just every decision we make is this going to help us continue our values in terms of the type of culture that we are? And is this going to move our family forward? And if the answer is no, we don't do it. period. And there's been a lot of deals that probably could have been really significant deals for us financially that we've bailed on because it just wasn't going to make sense for our culture and for our family.
Cool. I like that.
That's great.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Kris, it was great to chat with you. And we'll probably bring you back on at some point.
It's been fun. Yeah,
we have a lot of good tidbits.
Yeah.
All kinds of topics. I've been at it a long time. So yeah, I'll be happy to, man. This is great.
And we appreciate you joining us.
Great. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.